Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this meeting of Broadland District Council Cabinet on Tuesday, the 25th of November. We are being live streamed on the Council's YouTube channel. I'm just advising everybody present so that everybody's aware. That is correct, is it not, James? Is it on? Yes. Thank you. So, if I move to the agenda then, that's item 1 is declarations of interest. Does anybody have any interest to declare? No? Item 2, apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies for absence, James?
Yes, Chair, we have apologies from Councillor Hartley.
Thank you. In that case, I will take us to item 3, which is the minutes of the Cabinet meeting held on the 21st of October 2025. Have we all looked at those minutes? Are we all happy that they are accurate and happy to confirm? So, yes. Thank you very much. Public speaking. Do we have anybody for public speaking, James?
There's no public speaking, Chair.
Thank you. Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Councillor Starling, would you like to say something on behalf of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee?
Thank you. There was support for all matters before the committee last week. I think it's just worth pointing out that there was a lot of discussion around some of the items. Financial wise, I think everything made sense. We're very happy with the colour coding of how we're going with the risk. I know that's I wouldn't want to tread on anyone's toes, but the fact that the only one red issue was easily explainable and understandable, and also something that we're very aware of, because it's one of the things that's most highly monitored within the council. So therefore, any chance to flag it up as red is going to happen immediately. So that was very satisfactory to members. The financial position, whilst we would like to say we were really happy with it, obviously we were unhappy perhaps to have the full understanding which we gained when those of us who came to the briefing the other week that Rodney did, and others, explaining the long-term financial position of the council in relation to the new funding arrangements from the government to sort of essentially defund district councils to make them unviable. I think though we were all a little bit aghast at the situation the council finds itself in, but actually pleased that we're in a lot stronger position than most other district councils, because we're being punished for, even though we've done everything right and doing everything in the right way. But I think Rodney reassured us that everything is being done to keep on top of that. With regard to any of the other matters, I mean, council tax reduction scheme is something which we extended last year. We made more generous last year. The fact that we're looking to keep it the same is a positive thing and received support. There are exempt matters on here which I won't mention, but there was other than to say that everybody was very happy with those matters. I only say that because I may leave shortly because I have an unfortunate appointment at Carrow Road, which is going to bring me nothing but sorrow, but still I will go at some point.
Thank you, and you have our commiserations. Thank you for that. That will take us to item 6. Do we have any representations from non-cabinet members? I will move to item 7. That is the Strategic Performance and Risk Report for Quarter 2. That is in my portfolio. I would echo the fact that it's much easier to read. I think we've said this several times now, haven't we? But would you like to give us a rundown of what we've got in there, Matt? That would be very helpful. Thank you.
Of course, thank you, Chair. For performance, as Councillor Starling mentioned, we have one measure that is red over the last quarter. That is our measure for missed bins, and that is assessed as due to short-term contractor delivery challenges and not a longer-term issue. We also have another measure for food businesses with hygiene ratings of good or very good that we've consistently not been meeting targets on. However, at the same time, the performance has been within tolerance, and we are performing about the same or better than most of the Norfolk authorities that we benchmark ourselves against. We have one other measure at Amber, which is staff turnover. It's deteriorated slightly this quarter from 15% to 16% annual rolling turnover, and work continues to monitor and manage that situation. We have 25 other performance measures that were updated this quarter, for which we are achieving set performance objectives, including targets where those are set. Looking at some of the improvements this quarter, we've had an improvement to customer satisfaction. A lot of that is due to efforts to increase the number of responses that we're getting through the various channels that we interact with our residents about their satisfaction with the services that they receive. And temporary accommodation, which was a new measure established last quarter and was just below target at that point, is now above target at 91% occupancy rates. Turning to risk, majority of the changes are to do with proposed controls now becoming existing controls. A key change to highlight is that this quarter, the nutrient neutrality policy impact risk is being closed. That's because it's being reassessed as an issue, which is being managed as such and has had a lower level of impact than it was originally assessed as a risk. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thank you. Yeah, just as far as the nutrient neutrality is concerned, I think we did keep it on there for longer, just to keep monitoring it, didn't we? But I think everybody's feels fairly reassured now that it isn't really required on that strategic level, so I'm happy with that. I think if anybody else has got any comments they want to make, please do.
Thank you, Chair. I think one comment which I would make is about 4 years ago I sat in CEC committee and said that we need to be more ambitious with our customer satisfaction target, because at the time it was 60% and insisted that it be raised to 65%. And that was kind of coming back to haunt me last year when we were having problems collecting the data. I'd say I'm delighted to see that we've now raised that to 84% performance, because we're collecting data well now, and I think that much more reflects the impression that we get as members when we are dealing with members of the public.
Thank you. Very good point. Yes, Jan.
Yeah, I think Matt's very clearly explained the reds related to misbins. It was attributed to short-term contractor delivery issues. Feel we're on top of that. It's actually quite a very small figure. And similarly with food businesses, food hygiene ratings of good or very good. Certainly we've got, it's within tolerances, but there's also a plan to ensure that we get on top of that. And I'm quite satisfied that we're going in the right direction.
Lovely, thank you. I think that page, there's a page as well, isn't it, where it's got the changes since quarter one. That's quite useful as well. Just a nice little summary there, isn't it? Does anybody else have anything they want to say? No?
Well, just to comment, I think we've mentioned this before, but I think the changes that have taken place in the way that the registers are composed now have made a big difference. One in terms of comprehension, but in terms of being able to target in on what you need to be seeing and doing, and that's been a big improvement actually. So again, compliments to the officer and department on revising that too, really.
Thank you very much. In that case, can I just then take us to the recommendations on page 15, which is basically just to endorse the performance quarter 2, 25-26 as detailed in Appendix 1, and to endorse the current risk management position detailed in Appendix 2. Are we all happy to do that? Good, lovely. Thank you very much. Thank you, Matt. That brings us on to item 8, which is the finance report for quarter 2, 25-26. You'll find that on page 75. Steve, is there anything you would like to say? Darren is just joining us to help.
Yeah, I'll just kick off and Darren can pick up. I think the most significant thing within the revenue report is the favourable variance that we have, 739,000, and we're on target for the end of the year for that to be a very similar figure. And also, of course, we can return sums to our reserve fund as well, our general reserve. And just on the general reserve, touching into capital, over the last 2 years, we've seen a real improvement in that. As you recall, 2 years ago when we took over the administration, our general reserve stood at 5.5 million, and unfortunately at that point it was needed allocated for capital projects. We've improved that position to over 10 million now, so we have a clear 5 million buffer in terms of projected projects. So that gives me, and I think gives us, the whole council, a real comfort factor in case of shock or any other issues that we have or litigation. And I think that's been quite a turnaround in 2 years. And again, if we can return some of this to general reserves, that would be very helpful. And just hand over to the team.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Riley. Just a couple of items to add following your summary there. So, as you said, with showing a favourable variance on the cost of services, and that figure that we're anticipating to return to the general reserve at the end of the year is in the region of £437,000. At the end of September for the capital programme, the council has spent 3.16 million against a budget of, and so the expected forecast for the end of year is 10.943 million. So we are predicting to hit that figure by the end of the financial year. And there's some variances for the different services in the report and details on the capital programme as well. If you've got any questions, I'll be happy to take them. Thank you.
Thank you, Darren. Anybody got any questions they'd like to put? Well, that was easy, wasn't it? Yes, thank you. No, I think it is quite interesting, quite self-explanatory, isn't it? And I think the favourable variance is very promising. So, particularly given what's coming forward. So let's hold on to that. Thank you very much. I don't think there's anything else anybody else wants to say in that case. No. So I will move us then to the recommendation. See the way I turn my page over. Well, it's very simple. Cabinet to endorse the revenue and capital position. Are we all happy to do that? Lovely. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Darren. So that brings us on to item 9, which is the medium-term financial position and reserves update. Did you want to say anything first, Steve?
Yeah, thank you, sir. And I did watch ONS as usual, Nick. So I've picked up some of your comments actually there and observations around the MTF. Yeah, I'll draw everyone's attention to Cabinet's attention to page 89, moving over to page 90 is really significant. You'll see from 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, we've had some updated information since February last time we looked at the MTF, and you'll see there's adverse circumstance taking place there. The pooling for benefits in the table under 1.4 for business rates, you can see that was 600,000 in February. That was what we was predicting. Now we're predicting nil on that, and also the food waste is 400,000, which we was expecting in grant form. It's going to be put into the settlement. However, what our problem is, we don't know how that's going to be quantified. So at the moment, we have no information as to whether we'll actually lose some money within the settlement as a consequence of having an additional 400,000 just arriving in the settlement and not in form of a grant. If there is subtracted out, then clearly that's a loss to us. So this is something we're keeping our eye on, because 400,000, as you know, is a sizable sum of money, and also the new EPR fund, which came in last year, being paid through this November, is actually being reduced to 1.5. So these are significant changes on our predictions and the team predictions, which we must be mindful for to set the budget. And we are working away at this all the time strategically on whatever we do, being mindful of the budget coming in the following year. And you'll see on page 90, 1.5, the charts 1.5, 1.7, you see the change there. The 1.5 is the chart which we produced for setting the budget last year, and you can see we was in quite a healthy position moving forward over to this year and next year. Unfortunately, and this is a chart that Rodney's worked on for us in particular, on 1.7, we've now got a straight flat line. It's unpredictable where we are, but that's all we can say at the moment. And we're going to have to wait for the settlement to come in to see how that line changes and carry on working as the way we are in terms of our own budgets and where we're looking in terms of revenue for next year, which we are doing all the time, I'm sure, Cabinet. So really that's sort of the highlights I would just point out there, and again hand over to a very capable Rodney.
Rodney.
Thank you. I think it's probably worth saying that central government is probably doing the biggest shake-up of how local government has been funded for well over a decade. It's been trailed for a number of years, and the way they're doing it is very much that we want to shift resources to more deprived areas, and they're actually taking out some of the things that we've historically done well on. Things like new homes bonus, where actually we've achieved sort of lots of new houses in the area, which resulted in us getting new homes bonus. We've seen growth in the business rates. Again, we've seen benefits from that. But very much government is fully resetting the local government finance system, and there'll be winners and losers. And I'm sure there'll be some authorities who'll actually see benefits, actually where they'll have more funding. But for district councils like ourselves, we're very much facing a flat cash settlement for the next 3 years, which basically means that we will have no allowance for inflation for the next 3 years. And that assumes we put council tax up to the maximum. But as Steve has said, we are in a good financial position. We're already working through how we can deal with this going forward, and we won't know the actual impact on ourselves until the financial settlement comes out just before Christmas. So once we know that, we'll be in a far better position to actually understand the true extent of the change in our funding. So at the moment, this is really an update to say, be aware that this is coming, and as soon as we know more, we'll update members on this going forward. This report also sets out the current level of reserves for the council at 35 million. We have got a healthy level of reserves, so we are going into this in a good position. And this would be an opportune time to make changes to the reserves if you so wish. But at the moment, there are no changes being proposed to how these reserves are being earmarked. Happy to take questions.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's probably best not to do anything until we know exactly what the funding is going to be, isn't it? I mean, they always leave it till the very last minute, I think. This is a problem. And I think we've all been campaigning for years to have multi-year funding, but obviously we were rather hoping it might increase year on year, but there you are. Does anybody else have any questions or comments they wish to make about the financial plan?
Exactly. I think what comes from reading this paper is actually we're taking a very cautious position at this stage in the cycle. And in some ways, it's difficult to see how it could possibly be more cautious. That's the right place for us to be. We cross our fingers and hope for some good news either tomorrow or when the settlement comes through. But this is a sound basis on which we can work, and I entirely agree with the leader. It would be premature at this stage to be making any great changes or shaking things up. Let's see how the figures work out by Christmas, and then we can build from there on.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to make a comment or ask a question?
I'm just following on from Dan, really, just reassuring to know where we are, and certainly as Steve said, better than many councils, and that we are keeping a very close watch on the situation. Let's hope for the best, but as you say, we were hoping for multi-year funding, but not straight flat funding as it is. Let's see what comes.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we can say that's it then. If you're all happy, nobody else wants to say anything else?
Just one thing on the reserves. And Rodney's made a point. Irrespective of what happens in December on the funding settlement, in terms of revenue, the reserves really are another matter. So we will, as a cabinet, have to review that, particularly before LGR is finalised, and that will be quite a substantial review we would need to do. So that will be happening in the new year, not before Christmas, obviously, but we will have to do that.
Understood. Yes. Yes, but they do. You move them around, don't you, according to need? I mean, your earmark reserves are what they are, set aside for something. That need might change, so you do move things around, don't you?
And of course, policy. We may have some policy directives in terms of reserves as well.
Well, we'll look forward to that one then. Okay, so I will take us then to the recommendation. So Cabinet to endorse the latest version of the medium-term financial projections and Cabinet to note the reserves position. Are we all happy to do that? Thank you very much, Darren and Rodney. So that will bring us on to item 10, which is the Treasury Management Quarter 2 Report 25-26, and that will be Georgina. Did you want to say anything first, Steve? No? No, Georgina, it's all for you.
Thank you, Chair. This report gives an overview of the Council's Treasury position at the Quarter 2 point. Interest from external cash investments is forecast to be 1.494 million. MUFG Corporate Markets expect the bank rate to decrease to 3.75% by March 2026 and a further reduction to 3.5% by December 2026. Their interest rate strategy group are reviewing their interest rate and PWLB rate forecasts on the 22nd of December. Income derived from a combination of payments from maturing fixed-term investments and returns from liquid cash balances. No external borrowing has been required to date in 25-26. However, the Council internally borrowed 468k pending appropriate interest rates for external borrowing. The report includes performance against prudential indicators of which there have been no breaches. The report also includes a summarised update from our Treasury advisors, MUFG Corporate Markets. The capital financing requirement increased due to new capital budgets for temporary accommodation and accounting changes to lease obligations. However, external borrowing remains within the approved limits. I'm happy to take any questions anyone may have.
Right, anybody got any questions or comments they wish to make?
In terms of the 91 fund, it's been raised before, and if you look overall at the figures we've been achieving on the 1 yearly and 6 monthly investments, they've actually been on the par with the investments out there pension funds are making at the moment as well. So that's all good, and of course they are safe in terms of risk as well. The 91 fund has always been a long-term fund. It was taken out in 2011, so it's 14 years ago, and in terms of its dividend payments over the long term, it's actually returned around about 5%. The issue is the capital issue with it, which has decreased. However, our strategy is very clear around this, as it would be if we was managing a pension fund on this, is that we need to leave that where it is, and then the dividend payments come in or the capital increases, and at that point, that's then when we reverse out, change investment, once we make sure that capital's come back in one way, shape or form or the other. And that's a strategy we would apply to this. Overall, as is customary with these spread funds, that the overall return to the council's been around 4.5 to 5%. So you can't really argue with that. And the long-term ones are always like this. They're up and down, and you just exit at the right moment. And that's really just the observation on that fund in particular, because the rest of it's actually quite healthy and good.
Thank you. Anybody else? No, can you just remind me, under our borrowing, our internal borrowing was 468,000, and we said when interest rates fall sufficiently that we might borrow externally. Can you remind me what figure we were looking for if we were going to borrow externally?
Well, on our latest calculations, and we do keep checking on this with our housing team as well. There's a real business case done around this and study. On our last calculations, it was around 4.5, 4.6%. That means that we would achieve rental income that would, after paying for maintenance and everything else and administration costs, would cover the interest payments. That was the last figure, but we do keep looking at that to see whether that moves at all. So it's really around that sort of figure. However, then this is a big if the maths in terms of how we go about managing those properties changes, and supposing we actually only need 5%, to cover all costs, then you review it in that way as well. So that's a possibility, but again, we keep on looking at it and testing it. It's a combination of the two, really. Whatever that is, then we can set the interest rate at that. As you know, Sue, and I've been on about this for quite some time, and as Rodney knows as well, me being the sort of nerd I am, I've always studied the gilt markets, and the gilt market pattern for the next few years, you can see, is not good, and there's all kinds of factors for that, and I can't see that changing in the near future. Gilts affect the public loan board rate, and that's the problem we've got at the moment, and the government's stuck. If the budget actually goes wrong in terms of the way the markets see that, it's only going to get worse. There are things they could do to make that better, but who knows what the budget's going to bring tomorrow. If that drops, if that changes, then grab the rate when you can. At the moment, it's 4.5, 4.6 we're looking at. But that could alter in terms of our own maths.
So the key point we're looking at here is whatever we borrow externally, we will not do that until the rent income that we're getting covers the cost of the borrowing. That is the key point, isn't it?
Still fine.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. So just to clarify that, so in terms of those housing costs and so on, and how they might vary, and the things that, so rent's coming in, so it's vacancies, voids, and that sort of thing, that level, and also the management costs involved in that, I guess. Yeah, yeah.
It's a full cost. Anything outside of it, full cost analysis, as you would do in any proper business case study. And we've been really thorough on that as well with the team.
Okay. So it's reassuring to know that is the case, and also that it is being reviewed on a regular basis. So I think that's fine, and I'm happy with that. Anybody else got anything else they wish to say? No. Okay. In that case, I'll take us to the recommendations. So 1 is to endorse the Treasury activity for the first 6 months of the financial year and agree that it complies with the agreed strategy. And 2, note the 25-26 potential indicators for the first 6 months of the year. Are we all happy with those 2 recommendations? Yes, thank you very much. So that brings us on to the Council Tax Reduction Scheme 26-27 that you'll find on page 105, and Lindsay Sayer is our officer who will be going through that for us. Thank you very much, Lindsay.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, hopefully a nice quick one. We are required to review our Council Tax Reduction Scheme and have it agreed by Council each year, which is why we are here, even though there is no changes. But just to clarify, this is for our working age only. That's where we have the decision. The scheme for pensioners is under prescribed regulations, and we don't have any say over those. So any discussion we have here is only for our working age. As you may remember, we did a number of changes last year to be able to increase it to 87% with no increase on budget. And because we'd like that to bed in before we make any further changes, it was proposed and agreed that we would wait for a full financial year, do a proper review, and then consider if any adaptations need to be made next year. So for this year, there are no changes proposed. So I'm happy to answer any questions. And we also have Amy Palmer here, who is Benefit Manager, if anyone has any questions about how the scheme is actually operating sort of on a day-to-day basis.
Lovely, thank you both. Anybody got any questions or comments they want to make about that? No, I think, you know, the fact is we haven't changed it, so that's a good thing. And you might like to confirm that actually, because of the changes we made, you are happy that those have produced benefits and have been worthwhile. Is that?
Yes, I mean, well, the maximum percentage is now 3% higher for all working age, which is excellent. And one of the other big changes in terms of how the scheme operates for the offices is we increase the tolerance of basically the amount of income that someone can have before we would make a change to the scheme to help with our collection rate. So we weren't continually rebilling people by changing it each month, and that seems to be going very well. I mean, Amy's had some conversations with the council tax team, and they're really happy with how that change has actually affected their collection rates.
Thank you. That's very reassuring. So I think as there are no other changes, and we're very reassured to find that what we did last year is working. Shall I take us to the recommendations, which you will see on page 105? Cabinet recommends to Council that there are no changes to the Council Tax Reduction Scheme approved for 25-26, and this scheme is used as the Council Tax Reduction Scheme for 26-27. Are we all happy to recommend that to Council? Okay, so that brings us to item 12, which is the Broadland I'll start that again, shall I? The Broadland Biodiversity Strategy. Would you like to say anything, Jan? Or
Just very quickly, it's a strategy which not only fulfills our strategy duties under the Environment Act 2021, which we're required to do, but it builds on that and expands on that to be able to enhance and biodiversity through this strategy and our delivery plan. But over to Annie.
Am I on? I am. Thank you, Councillor Davies. So the biodiversity strategy, it's a brand new document for Broadland District Council. And as Councillor Davies has already pointed out, it centres really around three main drivers. So one is a commitment that we've already got in our climate change, environment and biodiversity delivery plan to develop said strategy. And then there's new duties, which as a direct result of the Environment Act, which means that local authorities, and this is a direct quote, must consider what they can do to conserve and enhance biodiversity, which practically means actual on the ground implementation of measures which support biodiversity, and then monitoring and reporting on biodiversity. And then finally, government legislation, which pledges to halt species decline by 2030 and to increase species abundance by 2040. And those points are summarised in section 3.2 of the report being presented today. So the biodiversity strategy itself is intended to be a forward-facing document, meaning it will be published on our website. And it showcases existing work that we do as a council, and then it outlines the future actions that we will take to support nature conservation and biodiversity. So the strategy has been developed around three main priorities. That is priority one. So they're direct actions that we will carry out on our own land to manage biodiversity. Priority two, which is about supporting biodiversity beyond the land that we own by enabling projects that support biodiversity. So that's things like green infrastructure and the existing Future for Nature Fund, which recently launched. And then priority three, which is around inspiring wider action to support biodiversity. So that's things like the work that we do with other organisations like Norfolk Wildlife Trust, for example. In terms of reporting and accountability, the strategy establishes a reporting framework as part of the Council's biodiversity duty, and the first statutory report is due to be published in early 2026, and the Climate Change and Environment team already working with the planning team in particular to pull that report together and look at how we report on the BNG metrics as well. So I'll pause there and take any questions that you might have.
lovely, thank you, Annie. Anybody got any questions?
Well, just to add, so thanks, Annie, for that. I think it's really good to see that this is an opportunity for us to work with other partners, and we're doing that. Norfolk Wildlife Trust as an example, and certainly with our parish and town councils as well through the Future for Nature Fund. I've certainly I know of several applications for funding coming in. That deadline has been extended to the 5th of December, so I'm saying that in case anybody's watching online and they want to put in a bid for the funding under the Future for Nature Fund. So we're looking at our own land and enhancing or conserving and enhancing that, and then looking to work with partners to be able to do the same. So I'm really excited about that and feel that this is something that we should be doing, not only because of the requirements under the Environment Act, but going above and beyond that. And thanks to the team for all the work they're doing on that.
Just in terms of excuse me, issues and risks on the resource and implications. I see 7.1 really adequately covers this. We're going to need some flexibility as we move forward in terms of application, and you can see that in 7.1, where the resource team, the team, will look at projects, resources that are needed, and individual work streams are developed and will be brought to members as appropriate. There's flexibility moving forward in terms of resource, and certainly from a finance point of view, I'm confident that we'd be able to resource this.
Excellent, thank you. And I'd just like to add a bit about the strategy itself, which I genuinely think is really easy to read and understand. And I think it highlights all the different things that we have to comply with and link to. It's been really well designed and laid out, and I think sometimes these strategies are really difficult to understand, aren't they? I actually think this one is, very easy to read, and I like the pictures. But I think it does exactly what you need. It explains why we're having the strategy. Because sometimes you get people, who've got lots of strategies for this, that, and the other. This is really clear. It's the three main priorities. It's where it links into legislation, where it links into the county's plans. All of those things are all taken into account. And I think, if somebody were to read it, they would actually get a good understanding of what the purpose is and why we're doing it and how we're doing it. So thank you.
Can I just say quickly on that point? There have been lots of compliments about the way that it looks, and just to say that Ellie Emerson in the comms marketing team worked quite closely with us on the development of that, so that's really due to her hard work.
Well, good for all of you then. Thank you very much. In that case, if we're all happy with that, shall I take us to the recommendation, which is to recommend to Council the adoption of the Biodiversity Strategy 25 to 2030. Yeah, thank you. That brings us to item 13, which is the forward plan. Does anybody have any comments they wish to make on the forward plan? Have we got any additions or subtractions or anything that is noteworthy? No, we're all happy that we're running to schedule and everything is understandable. Excellent. Okay then, thank you. We have no comments effectively. Well done. In that case, it brings me to the exclusion of the press and public. So I move that the press and public be excluded from the meeting for the remaining items of business because otherwise information which is exempt information by virtue of paragraph 3 of part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972, as amended by the Local Government Access to Information Variation Order of 2006, would be disclosed to them.